The rain had started around 7 that evening, the kind of persistent November drizzle that turned Chicago's streets into mirrors reflecting neon and headlights. By 9:30, when Maya Rivera pushed through the kitchen doors of Marco's Bistro, carrying a tray of empty plates, the downpour had settled into a steady rhythm against the restaurant's tall windows, a sound that would have been soothing if her feet didn't ache so badly. "Table 12 needs water refills," called Marcus, the head waiter, barely looking up from his order pad. His tone carried that particular edge of someone who'd worked in hospitality too long and had forgotten how to be kind about it. "On it," Maya replied, setting the tray down beside the industrial dishwasher where Danny, the 17-year-old busboy, stood elbow-deep in suds. The kid offered her a sympathetic smile. He was new, still thought the job might lead somewhere. Maya had been where he was 3 years ago. She was 26 now, and Marco's Bistro had become less of a stepping stone and more of a trap, the kind that closed slowly, degree by degree, until you looked up one day and realized you'd been standing in the same place for far too long. Maya filled a pitcher with ice water, her reflection catching in the stainless steel surface. Dark hair pulled back in a practical bun, minimal makeup because there was no point anymore. Eyes that used to be bright with ambition now just looked tired. She'd started working here during her first year of nursing school at Loyola. That was supposed to be temporary. 3 years later, she was still slinging pasta and taking orders, her textbooks gathering dust in her studio apartment 6 blocks away. The student loans hadn't gathered dust. Those had grown, compounded, multiplied like something alive and hungry. "Maya, you're up for Section 4, Marcus said, nodding toward the dining room. New customer just sat down. Window booth. She glanced through the circular window in the kitchen door. Marco's Bistro wasn't fancy. It occupied an awkward middle ground between authentic Italian and American comfort food, the kind of place that survived on regulars and tourists who wandered too far from the magnificent mile. The interior tried hard. Exposed brick on one wall, framed photographs of Sicily that had probably come from a stock photo website, candlelight that was supposed to feel romantic, but mostly just made it hard to read the menu. Tonight the dining room was sparse. A couple in their 50s sat near the bar, splitting a bottle of Chianti. 2 businessmen occupied a corner table, dessert plates being cleared. And now, in the window booth of Section 4, a man sat alone. Maya pushed through the door, pitcher in hand, and felt the restaurant's atmosphere settle over her like a familiar coat. Jazz played softly from speakers hidden in the ceiling. Miles Davis, she thought, though she'd never been good with jazz. The air smelled of garlic, tomato sauce, and fresh bread. Outside, the rain continued its steady percussion against glass. She approached the window booth with her professional smile in place, the one that didn't quite reach her eyes anymore but fooled most customers. "Good evening, sir. Can I start you off with something to drink tonight?" The man looked up from the menu, and Maya's practiced greeting nearly faltered. He was probably in his late 30s, dressed in a way that spoke of money but not ostentation. A charcoal gray suit that fit too well to be off the rack, crisp white shirt open at the collar, no tie. His dark hair was styled back, showing the first hints of silver at the temples. Strong features, the kind of face that photographs would call handsome, but in person carried something harder. His eyes were dark, assessing, the kind that seemed to calculate more than they observed. But it wasn't his appearance that made Maya's breath catch for half a second. It was the recognition. She knew this face. Not personally. She'd never met this man in her life, but she'd seen it. Recently. "Where?" "I'll have a Macallan." "Neat," he said. His voice was smooth, cultured, with the faintest trace of a New York accent underneath the practiced neutrality. "And a bottle of your Pellegrino." "Of course," Maya replied, jotting down the order on her pad even though she'd remember it. Her mind was racing, trying to place him. "Are you ready to order dinner, or would you like a few more minutes?" "I'll need a few minutes." He handed her the menu without looking at it, his attention already drifting to his phone. Maya nodded and turned away, walking back toward the bar with measured steps. Her heart was beating faster than it should. Why did she recognize him? The question nagged at her as she placed the drink order with Paul, the bartender. "Macallan neat and a Pellegrino for table 12, she said. Paul whistled low. "Window booth guy? He looks like money." Maya leaned against the bar, pretending to check her order pad while her mind worked. She had one of those memories that retained faces, a skill that served her well in the service industry but was currently proving unsettling. She'd definitely seen this man before and recently, but where? Paul set the drinks on her tray. The Macallan glowed amber in the candlelight. expensive liquid in a crystal tumbler. Maya delivered the drinks, the man. She still couldn't place him. Barely acknowledging her beyond a slight nod, she moved on to check her other tables, going through the motions. The couple near the bar needed their check. The businessmen had already paid and were gathering their coats, preparing to brave the rain. She was processing the couple's credit card when it hit her. The news. She'd seen his face on the news. Maya's hand stilled on the card reader. When had she watched the news? She rarely had time for television between double shifts and trying to study. But her mother, yes, her mother watched the local news religiously every evening. Maya had been visiting her 3 days ago, Tuesday evening, sitting in the small living room of the assisted living facility where Elena Rivera now lived, the television droning in the background while Maya helped her mother with dinner. There had been a story, something about organized crime in Chicago. The reporter had shown photographs, names, mentioned ongoing investigations, federal prosecutors, the Marcello family. The Marcello family. Maya's stomach dropped. Vincent Marcello, that was the name. Vincent Vinny Marcello, they'd called him. Alleged underboss of one of Chicago's remaining organized crime operations. The news story had been careful with its language. Alleged, reportedly, according to sources. But the implication had been clear. This was a dangerous man. The kind of man who appeared in court proceedings and FBI press conferences. And he was sitting in her section, drinking a $30 scotch, looking at his phone, like any other customer. Maya forced herself to breathe normally. Maybe she was wrong. Maybe it wasn't him. It had been a brief news segment. The photograph flashed on screen for maybe 10 seconds. Plenty of men in their late 30s had dark hair and wore expensive suits. But the more she tried to convince herself, the more certain she became. It was him. The same strong jaw, the same calculating eyes, the same presence that seemed to take up more space than his physical form should occupy. What was a mob boss doing at Marco's Bistro? The question was absurd even as she thought it. Criminals had to eat too, presumably. And Marco's, for all its mediocrity, was exactly the kind of place someone might choose if they wanted a meal without drawing attention. Not too expensive, not too cheap. Neighborhood establishment. Quiet on a rainy Thursday night. Maya glanced toward the window booth. Vincent, she was certain now it was him, was still absorbed in his phone, one hand wrapped around the tumbler of scotch. He looked utterly at ease, like a man with nothing to fear. Should she do something? Tell someone? Call? Who? The police? And say what? There's a man who might be a criminal eating dinner in your restaurant? Even if she was right. Even if it was Vincent Marcello, he wasn't doing anything wrong. People with alleged criminal connections still had the right to eat pasta in peace. Besides, Maya had her own problems. Her mother's medications had gone up again last month. The assisted living facility was threatening to increase their rates. Maya's own rent was due in a week and she was already $200 short. She couldn't afford to cause trouble, to make waves, to be the waitress who created drama over a customer who was, currently, just sitting quietly in a booth. She finished processing the couple's payment, walked their check back to them with another automatic smile, wished them a good evening. The businessmen had already left. The restaurant was now down to 3 occupied tables, an elderly man reading a newspaper in Section 2, a young couple who looked like they were on a first date in Section 3, and Vincent Marcello in Section 4, her section. Maya refilled water glasses, checked the time, 9:47 p.m., and tried to calm the anxiety that had settled in her chest. She was being ridiculous. Even if it was him, even if Vincent Marcello was sitting in Marco's Bistro, it had nothing to do with her. She'd take his order, serve his food, bring his check, and he'd leave. That would be the end of it. She approached the window booth again. Notepad ready. Have you decided on dinner, sir? Vincent set his phone down, face up on the table. The screen showed what looked like a text message conversation, but Maya couldn't read it from her angle. The osso buco, he said, and bring me another Macallan when you have a chance. Of course. Would you like any sides with that? We have just the osso buco. Perfect. Maya wrote it down, even though it was a simple order. I'll get that started for you right away. She turned to go, but his voice stopped her. How long have you worked here? Maya turned back surprised. In 3 years of waitressing, she'd learned that customers fell into categories. Most didn't notice their servers at all. They were just uniformed bodies bringing food. Some were friendly in that casual, performative way that came with good tipping. A few were inappropriate, handsy, the kind that made her grip her order pad a little tighter. But Vincent's question fell outside these categories. It was direct, almost curious, but without the warmth of genuine friendliness. 3 years, she answered, keeping her tone professional but pleasant. You like it? What an odd question, and what an impossible question to answer honestly. Did she like being 26 years old? Serving food instead of finishing nursing school? Watching her dreams recede further every month? Did she like the ache in her feet? The grease smell that clung to her clothes? The way some customers looked through her like she was transparent? It's a good job, she said, the lie smooth from practice. Marco's takes care of its employees. That was mostly true. Marco himself was rarely around. He owned 3 restaurants in the Chicago area, but the management wasn't cruel. The pay was technically above minimum wage, and they were flexible when she needed time off for her mother. Vincent studied her for a moment, those dark eyes seeming to look for something beneath the polite deflection. Then he nodded, almost to himself. That's good. Loyalty matters. Maya wasn't sure how to respond to that, so she just smiled and headed back to the kitchen. Her heart rate elevated again. What had that been about? Why had he asked her those questions? She input the order into the computer system. The kitchen was in the usual controlled chaos of a slow night. Chef Andrea calling out prep for tomorrow. Line cook Jose cleaning his station. Danny still washing dishes with his headphones in. Order up for table 12, Maya called. Osso buco, single, no sides. Andrea glanced at the ticket. 20 minutes. Maya nodded and grabbed another tumbler of Macallan from Paul, returning to the window booth. Vincent accepted the drink with a slight nod, his attention back on his phone. Maya retreated to the server station, folding napkins because she needed something to do with her hands. The restaurant felt different now, charged with an energy she couldn't quite name. Or maybe that was just her paranoia. Maybe Vincent Marcello was just a man having dinner, and she was projecting significance onto nothing. But Maya's instincts, honed by 3 years of reading customer moods and anticipating needs, told her something else. There was a tension in the air, subtle but present, like the feeling before a thunderstorm when the atmospheric pressure changes and animals go quiet. At 10:04 p.m., Andrea called that the osso buco was ready. Maya picked up the plate, beautifully presented, the braised veal shank falling off the bone, risotto Milanese golden and fragrant, and carried it to table 12. Here you are, she said, setting the plate down with practiced precision. Can I get you anything else? I'm fine, thank you. Maya left him to his meal and checked on her other tables. The elderly man with the newspaper was nursing a coffee, in no hurry to leave. The young couple had ordered dessert, tiramisu to share, 1 fork, very first date, and were deep in conversation, the kind where they leaned across the table toward each other, the rest of the world fading away. Maya remembered feeling like that once. Not recently, not for a long time. She was refilling the coffee for the elderly gentleman when she noticed it. A car had pulled up across the street, parking in a loading zone where parking was technically prohibited this time of night. It was a dark sedan, American make, nondescript in the way that somehow made it conspicuous. The windows were tinted darker than legal. The engine was running. She could see the faint exhaust in the cold air. Maya wouldn't have thought anything of it except that the car was positioned directly across from Marco's bistro, directly across from the window booth where Vincent Marcello sat eating his osso buco. She was being paranoid. Chicago was full of cars. People parked illegally all the time. It meant nothing, but her hands trembled slightly as she poured the coffee, and the elderly gentleman looked up at her with concern. You all right, dear? Fine, thank you, Maya said automatically. Enjoy your coffee. She walked back to the server station, her eyes drawn to the window, to the dark sedan across the street. As she watched, the driver's side door opened. A man stepped out, tall, wearing a long dark coat, his face shadowed by the brim of a hat. He didn't come toward the restaurant. Instead, he walked down the sidewalk away from Marco's, hands in his pockets, unhurried. Maya exhaled. See? Nothing. Just someone parking illegally to run an errand. Chicago. It happened. But the car stayed running. The passenger side was still occupied. She could see the silhouette of someone in the seat, though the tinted windows made details impossible. 10 minutes passed. Vincent continued eating, seemingly unaware of anything unusual. The young couple finished their tiramisu and paid their bill, leaving hand in hand into the rain, giggling about something. The elderly man asked for his check. At 10:23 p.m., Maya was clearing glasses from the bar when she happened to glance up at the building across the street. It was an older structure, 4 stories, the kind of mixed-use building common in this neighborhood, commercial space on the ground floor, apartments above. Most of the windows were dark this late on a Thursday. Most, but not all. On the third floor, one window showed a faint light. Not the warm glow of a lamp or television, but something else. Something that flickered for just a second. There and gone. Maya's mouth went dry. She was being insane. Paranoid. She'd watched too many crime dramas. Let her imagination run wild because she'd recognized a customer from the news. There was nothing happening. Nothing at all. Vincent had finished his meal. Maya approached the table, her professional smile feeling like it might crack. "How was everything?" "Excellent," he said, and it seemed genuine. He dabbed his mouth with the napkin, a gesture oddly refined for someone allegedly involved in organized crime. "Just the check, please." "Of course." Maya's voice sounded normal to her own ears, which felt like an accomplishment, given that her heart was hammering. "I'll bring that right over." She walked to the server station and printed the check. The total came to $78.50, the Osso Buco, 2 Macallans, the Pellegrino. She stared at the slip of paper for a long moment, her mind racing. This was the moment she could leave it alone. Bring him the check, let him pay, let him leave. Whatever paranoid fantasies she'd constructed would leave with him, and she could finish her shift, go home, take a bath to soothe her aching feet, and forget this entire strange evening. But something stopped her. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe it was the 3 years of learning to read situations, to sense when something was off. Maybe it was the memory of that news broadcast, the reporter's serious tone. Federal prosecutors say the Marcello organization has been linked to multiple incidents in the Chicago area. Maybe it was simpler than that. Maybe it was the memory of her mother, 62 years old and struggling with diabetes, sitting in her small room at the assisted living facility, watching the news because she had nothing else to do. Her mother, who'd worked 2 jobs to raise Maya alone after her father died. Her mother, who'd sacrificed everything so Maya could go to college, could become a nurse, could have a better life. Maya's mother had taught her something important. When you see someone in danger, you help. Even if it's risky, even if it's scary, you help. She picked up the check and a pen. Her hand was shaking. She took a breath, steadied herself, and wrote 2 words beneath the total. "Run now." Her handwriting looked strange. Urgent, the letters slightly uneven. She stared at what she'd written for 3 seconds that felt like 3 hours. This was insane. This was none of her business. This could cost her job, or worse. If she was wrong, and she was probably wrong, Vincent Marcello would think she was crazy. He might complain to management. She might get fired. If she was right. Maya didn't let herself finish that thought. She folded the check holder, placed the slip inside, and walked to table 12 on legs that felt disconnected from her body. "Here you are," she said, setting the folder down in front of him. Her voice sounded remarkably calm. "Whenever you're ready, no rush." Vincent reached for the check and Maya's whole world seemed to slow down. She'd served thousands of checks in 3 years. This was the most important one. He opened the folder. His eyes scanned the total first. That's what everyone did. And then dropped to the bottom of the slip where her handwriting stood out irregular and urgent against the printed text. "Run now." Maya saw the exact moment he registered the words. His eyes stopped moving. His expression didn't change. That was the remarkable thing. But something in his posture shifted, a coiled tension that hadn't been there before. He looked up at her. Their eyes met, and Maya saw her own fear reflected back at her, along with something else. Calculation, assessment, a rapid evaluation of threat level, sincerity, danger. "Is this," he started to say, and then his eyes shifted, past her, to the window, to his own reflection in the rain-streaked glass, to the small red dot that had appeared on his chest. Maya's breath caught. She hadn't imagined it. The red dot was real, a pinpoint of laser light steady on the white fabric of Vincent's shirt, right over his heart. As she watched, frozen, it began to move, slowly, deliberately, sliding upward across his chest, his shoulder, his neck, toward his head. Vincent's hand moved faster than Maya would have thought possible. He grabbed her wrist, yanked her down below the level of the booth's backrest, and in the same motion threw himself sideways. The window exploded, glass shattered in a crystalline spray, the sound impossibly loud in the quiet restaurant. Maya felt Vincent's weight collide with her as they both hit the floor, heard screaming. Was that her? Was that someone else? Heard Paul the bartender shout something, heard the crash of dishes breaking. Maya's ears were ringing. She was on the floor of Marco's bistro, covered in safety glass, Vincent Marcello's arm around her shoulders in an iron grip, and she could smell gunpowder and rain, and the osso buco that had spilled across the floor. "Stay down," Vincent said into her ear, his voice deadly calm despite everything. "Don't move. Don't look up." But Maya did look up, tilting her head just enough to see the window booth. The window was gone, just jagged shards clinging to the frame. Rain was coming in, soaking the booth's upholstery. The wall behind where Vincent had been sitting was scarred with a dark mark, a gouge in the exposed brick where a bullet had struck. Someone had tried to take his head off. Someone had tried to end his life while he sat eating veal in a restaurant in Chicago on a rainy Thursday night, and Maya had saved him. The reality of it crashed over her like a wave. She'd saved him. She'd written those 2 words, "Run now," and those words had bought him the 3 seconds he needed to move before the shot came. "Kitchen," Vincent said, his voice still that eerie calm. "We need to move. Now. Can you stand?" Maya nodded, though she wasn't sure it was true. Vincent released her and rose to a crouch, staying below the level of the windows. He offered her his hand, and she took it, letting him pull her up. Her legs shook, but they held. The restaurant had erupted into chaos. Marcus was behind the bar, phone in hand, probably calling 911. Chef Andrea had emerged from the kitchen, face pale with shock. Danny stood in the doorway, frozen. The elderly man with the newspaper had thrown himself under his table, and outside, through the shattered window, Maya could see the dark sedan pulling away from the curb, tires squealing on wet pavement, disappearing into Chicago's rainy night. Vincent's hand was still gripping hers. "The kitchen," he said again, more urgently. "Is there a back exit?" "Yes," Maya heard herself say. "Through the alley. Show me." She moved on autopilot, leading him through the dining room, through the swinging kitchen doors, past Andrea and Danny, who stared at them with open mouths. The kitchen was bright and hot and smelled of garlic and dish soap. Such normal smells, such an absurd contrast to what had just happened. The back door was at the far end, past the walk-in freezer and the dry storage. Maya pushed through it, and they emerged into an alley slick with rain and scattered with dumpsters. The cold air hit her face like a slap, shocking her back into her body. She was standing in an alley behind Marco's bistro with a man who'd nearly been shot in the head. The sound of sirens already wailing in the distance, and she had no idea what happened next. Vincent released her hand and turned to face her. His suit was dusty with glass fragments. A small cut on his cheek was bleeding, a thin line of red against his skin, but his eyes were sharp, focused, alive with an intensity that made Maya's breath catch. "Why?" he asked simply. Maya's mind was blank. "I saw the red dot. I saw it on the window, and I knew." "How did you know?" "I recognized you. From the news. I thought—" She trailed off, realizing how insane this sounded. "I saw a car outside, a man in a window across the street. I thought something was wrong." Vincent studied her face, that same assessing look from earlier but deeper now, searching for something. "What's your name?" "Maya. Maya Rivera." "Maya," he repeated, and the way he said it sounded like a promise, or a threat, or both. "You just saved my life." The sirens were getting closer. Flashing lights reflected off the wet pavement at the alley's entrance. "I have to go," Vincent said, "but I won't forget this. Do you understand? I won't forget." And then he was gone, moving down the alley with swift, silent steps, disappearing into the Chicago night like smoke. Maya stood alone in the rain, shaking, her uniform soaked, her heart pounding, and thought, "What have I just done?" Maya stood in the alley for exactly 7 seconds after Vincent Marcello disappeared into the darkness. 7 seconds of cold November rain soaking through her uniform, of distant sirens growing louder, of her mind trying to catch up with what her body had just experienced. Then reality slammed back into focus. She needed to go back inside. The police would be here any moment. There would be questions, so many questions, and she needed to be there to answer them. She was a witness. More than that, she was the person who'd warned him, who'd written those 2 words that had somehow impossibly saved a man's life. "Run now." Maya's hands were still shaking as she pushed back through the kitchen door. The scene inside was controlled chaos. Marcus had corralled everyone into the kitchen, away from the shattered window. Chef Andrea was on her phone, probably calling Marco to inform him that his restaurant had just become a crime scene. Danny sat on an overturned milk crate, his face pale, looking younger than his 17 years. "Maya." Marcus grabbed her shoulders, his eyes wide with concern, an emotion she'd rarely seen from him. "Are you hurt? Did he hurt you?" "No, I'm fine," Maya said automatically, though she wasn't sure it was true. She wasn't bleeding, at least. The glass hadn't cut her, but her ears were still ringing from the sound of the window shattering, and her wrist ached where Vincent had grabbed her. "Where is he?" Marcus demanded. "Where did he go?" "I don't know. He ran out the back. I didn't see which way." It was the truth, technically. She hadn't seen which direction Vincent went after he disappeared into the alley. The lie of omission sat heavy in her chest, but Maya told herself it didn't matter. Vincent was gone. Whatever happened now was out of her hands. The first police car arrived at 10:31 p.m. according to the clock above the stove. 2 officers entered through the front, hands on their belts, eyes scanning for threats. They were followed quickly by 2 more, and then a detective in a rumpled suit who introduced herself as Detective Sarah Chen. The next 2 hours blurred together in a haze of repeated questions and official documentation. Detective Chen was thorough, patient, and impossible to read. She interviewed each person separately, starting with Marcus, then Andrea, then Danny. Maya sat in the kitchen, drinking terrible coffee that Paul had made, waiting her turn and trying to organize her thoughts into something coherent. What would she tell them? The truth felt impossible. I recognized a customer from the news as a mob boss, noticed suspicious activity outside, and warned him about a sniper. But lying felt worse. Maya had never been good at lying. Her mother had always said it was because Maya wore her heart on her face, every emotion visible to anyone who cared to look. "Ms. Rivera," Detective Chen appeared in the doorway, notepad in hand. "I'm ready for you now." They sat at one of the stainless steel prep tables, the kitchen's fluorescent lights harsh and unforgiving. Detective Chen was in her 40s, Maya guessed, with sharp eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses, and an air of someone who'd heard every story twice. "Walk me through your evening," Chen said. "Start from when you began your shift." Maya did, keeping her voice steady. She described the slow Thursday night, the sparse tables, the routine of service. She described Vincent arriving, sitting in the window booth, ordering the Macallan and Osso Buco. "Did you recognize him?" Chen asked. The question hung in the air between them. Maya could feel the weight of it, the way her answer would shape everything that followed. "I thought he looked familiar," Maya said carefully. "I wasn't sure from where. But you wrote a note on his check," Chen said, flipping through her notepad. "Other staff members saw you writing something. What did you write?" Maya's throat felt dry. "I saw something outside. A red light like a laser. It was on the window moving. I thought something was wrong. So you warned him?" "I didn't know what else to do." Maya met Chen's eyes, and she let the fear she'd been holding back show through. It wasn't hard. The fear was real, just beneath the surface. "I saw the light, and I just knew something bad was about to happen. So I wrote on his check to run." "What exactly did you write?" "Run now." Chen made a note. "And then what happened?" Maya described the rest. The red dot on Vincent's chest, him pulling her down, the window shattering, the chaos. She left out the part about recognizing him from the news broadcast, the way she deliberated over whether to warn him. Some truths were better kept close. "Did he say anything to you?" Chen asked. "He told me to stay down, to not move. Then he asked about a back exit and I showed him to the kitchen door." "Did he threaten you?" "No." Maya shook her head firmly. "He just left." Chen studied her for a long moment, those sharp eyes searching for inconsistencies, for the gaps in the story. Maya forced herself to hold the detective's gaze, to not look away like someone with something to hide. "Ms. Rivera," Chen said finally, "do you understand that the man you warned tonight is Vincent Marcello? He's currently under federal investigation for racketeering, among other charges." "I know who he is now," Maya said. "I didn't before. Not for certain. By warning him, you may have interfered with an ongoing investigation. You could potentially face charges for obstruction." Fear spiked through Maya's chest, cold and sharp. "I didn't know there was an investigation. I just saw someone about to get hurt and I tried to help. Isn't that what you're supposed to do?" Chen's expression softened, just slightly. "In principle, yes. But in practice, situations like this are complicated. Mr. Marcello is not an innocent civilian. He's still a person," Maya said quietly. "I saw someone in danger, and I reacted. I'm sorry if that caused problems, but I don't think I could have just watched and done nothing." The detective sighed, closing her notepad. "For now, I'm going to classify you as a witness, not a suspect." But I need you to understand something, Ms. Rivera. Vincent Marcello is dangerous. The people he associates with are dangerous. By involving yourself in this situation, you may have put yourself at risk. I understand, Maya said, though she wasn't sure she truly did. The scope of what she'd done was still too big to fully comprehend. If anyone contacts you, Mr. Marcello or anyone associated with him, you need to call me immediately. Chen handed Maya a business card. Day or night, this is serious. Maya took the card, the paper crisp and official between her fingers. Okay. And Ms. Rivera, you did save a man's life tonight, regardless of who he is or what he's done. That took courage. But courage and safety don't always align. Be careful. The interview concluded shortly after midnight. Marco himself arrived at 12:15 a.m., his usual composure shaken as he surveyed the damage to his restaurant. The window booth was a disaster. Glass everywhere, rain-soaked upholstery, the brick wall scarred. The restaurant would be closed for at least a week, he announced. Everyone would still get paid, but the investigation would need to run its course. Maya gathered her things from her locker, her purse, her jacket, her phone, which she'd silenced before her shift and hadn't checked in hours. When she finally turned it on, she had 6 missed calls, all from her mother's facility. Her blood turned to ice. She called back immediately, her fingers clumsy on the screen. It rang twice before a familiar voice answered. Sunrise Meadows Assisted Living. This is Janet speaking. This is Maya Rivera, Elena Rivera's daughter. I have missed calls from this number. Is my mother okay? Oh, Maya, yes, your mother is fine. We were calling because she became agitated earlier this evening. She was insisting something had happened to you, that you were in danger. We tried to calm her, but she was quite upset. I wanted to make sure you were all right. Maya closed her eyes, leaning against the locker. Her mother's intuition had always been uncanny, borderline supernatural. Even now, with the diabetes affecting her cognitive function some days, Elena Rivera could sense when her daughter needed her. I'm fine, Maya said. There was an incident at work, but I'm not hurt. Can I speak to her? She's sleeping now. The nurse gave her something to help her calm down around 10, but she'll be so relieved to know you're safe. Should I leave a message that you called? Yes, please. Tell her I'll visit tomorrow afternoon. Maya ended the call and stood in the employee area for a moment, suddenly exhausted. The adrenaline that had been carrying her through the evening was draining away, leaving behind a bone-deep weariness that made her limbs feel heavy. She needed to go home, needed to sleep, to process, to figure out what came next. The rain had lightened to a mist by the time Maya stepped out the front door of Marco's. The street was still crawling with police vehicles, their lights painting the wet pavement in shades of blue and red. Crime scene tape cordoned off the sidewalk in front of the restaurant. A few curious neighbors stood watching from doorways, despite the late hour. Maya pulled her jacket tight and started walking. Her apartment was only 6 blocks away. She usually enjoyed the walk, used it to decompress after shifts. Tonight, every shadow felt threatening. Every parked car could be hiding someone. Every sound made her jump. She was halfway home, walking past a closed convenience store, when the black car pulled up alongside her. Maya's heart stopped. It was a different vehicle than the sedan from earlier. This was a sleek BMW, dark blue or black. It was hard to tell in the dim streetlight. The passenger window lowered silently. Get in. Vincent Marcello sat in the driver's seat, his suit jacket gone, his white shirt slightly disheveled, but his eyes as sharp and alert as they'd been in the restaurant. The small cut on his cheek had been cleaned but not bandaged. Maya stopped walking, her hand instinctively reaching for her phone in her pocket. I can't, the detective said. I know what the detective said. Get in anyway. We need to talk, and we can't do it on the street. How did you even find me? Maya's voice came out higher than she intended. I followed you from the restaurant. Please, Maya. I'm not going to hurt you, but there are things you need to know. Things that affect your safety. That last part made her hesitate. Detective Chen's words echoed in her mind. By involving yourself in this situation, you may have put yourself at risk. Maya looked up and down the empty street. No cars, no pedestrians, just her and Vincent and the mist and the darkness. She thought about her mother, sleeping peacefully now, unaware of the danger her daughter had stumbled into. She thought about the red dot on Vincent's chest, the sound of shattering glass, the way he'd moved to protect her even as he protected himself. Against every instinct of self-preservation, Maya opened the passenger door and got in. The interior of the BMW was warm, leather seats soft beneath her. It smelled faintly of expensive cologne and coffee. Vincent pulled away from the curb smoothly, merging into the sparse late-night traffic. "Where are we going?" Maya asked. "Nowhere specific. I just need to drive while we talk. Sitting still feels dangerous right now." They drove in silence for a few blocks, heading south toward the Loop. The city at this hour was quieter, the usual chaos of Chicago reduced to a low hum. Streetlights reflected off wet pavement. A few bars were still open, their neon signs bright in the darkness. "Thank you," Vincent said finally. "For what you did tonight, you saved my life." "You already said that. In the alley." "I know, but I need you to understand how significant it was. People don't usually—" He paused, searching for words. "People in my life don't usually act without expecting something in return. What you did, warning a stranger, putting yourself at risk, it's rare, maybe unprecedented." Maya turned to look at him. In the passing streetlights, his profile was sharp, handsome in a harsh way, but there was something else there too. Weariness, the weight of whatever world he inhabited showing through the careful composure. "I didn't do it for a reward," Maya said. "I did it because it was the right thing to do. I know. That's what makes it remarkable." He turned the car west, away from downtown. "But it also makes you vulnerable. The people who tried to end my life tonight, they'll know someone warned me. They'll want to know who." Fear prickled down Maya's spine. How would they know? The restaurant was mostly empty. It could have been anyone. They'll figure it out. Trust me, they're thorough. And when they do, Vincent's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "I need you to be prepared, to be careful." The detective gave me her card. She said to call if anyone contacted me. "That's good. The police can help, to an extent. But you need to understand the reality of this situation." Vincent pulled the car into an empty parking lot beside a closed grocery store and put it in park. He turned to face her fully. "The people who came after me tonight aren't going to stop. They've committed now. They missed once, which means they'll try again. And anyone connected to me, anyone who helped me, becomes a potential target or leverage point." Maya's mouth felt dry. "Are you saying they'll come after me?" "I'm saying it's possible. Probable even, once they identify you." Vincent reached into the glove compartment and pulled out a thick envelope. "This is $15,000 cash. I want you to take it. Leave Chicago for a while. Visit family out of state. Take a vacation. Whatever you need to do. Just disappear until this resolves." Maya stared at the envelope like it might bite her. "I can't take that." "Yes, you can. You need to." "No, you don't understand. I have a mother in an assisted living facility. She has diabetes, she needs regular care, I can't just leave her. And I have a job, bills, responsibilities." "Your job just got shut down for a week minimum," Vincent interrupted, his voice gentler than she expected. "As for your mother, I can arrange for her care to continue. Better care if needed. The money would cover—" "Stop." Maya held up her hand, surprised by the firmness in her own voice. "Just stop. I appreciate the offer. I really do. But I'm not taking money from you. And I'm not running away." Vincent studied her face, that same searching look from the alley. "You don't know what you're dealing with. Then explain it to me. Help me understand." He was quiet for a long moment, the only sound the gentle hum of the car's engine. Outside, the mist had turned back into proper rain, droplets streaming down the windshield. "I grew up in this world," Vincent said finally. "My father, my uncle, my grandfather before them. We're Marcellos. It's not just a name, it's a legacy. A business built on loyalty, territory, and respect. I never chose it, not really. It chose me the day I was born." Maya listened, watching the way his jaw tightened, the way he looked straight ahead rather than at her. "For a long time I believed in it. The code, the structure, the idea that we were providing services the legitimate world couldn't or wouldn't. Protection, solutions, opportunities. But the older I get, the more I see what it really is. A machine that consumes people, that turns loyalty into leverage and respect into fear." "Then why stay?" Maya asked quietly. "Because leaving isn't simple. It's not like quitting a job. People who try to leave this life usually end up dead or in witness protection, which is its own kind of death. And because—" He paused, his voice dropping. "Because I have a younger brother, Eddie. He got out, joined the military, made something legitimate of himself. He's a mechanic now, married, 2 kids. I stayed so he wouldn't have to. Someone has to carry the name, and I'd rather it be me than him." The vulnerability in his voice surprised Maya. This wasn't the feared mob boss from the news reports. This was a man trapped by circumstances, by family, by choices made before he was old enough to understand their weight. What happened tonight? Maya asked. Who tried to hurt you? Vincent's expression hardened. Someone close to me. Someone I trusted. That's usually how it goes. The threat comes from inside, not outside. There's a power struggle happening and I'm in the way. Can you prove it? Go to the police? He laughed, but there was no humor in it. That's not how this works. In my world, you handle problems internally. Going to the police would be seen as weakness, betrayal. It would make things worse, not better. So what are you going to do? What I have to do. Find proof. Expose the traitor. Neutralize the threat. He turned to look at her again. But that's my problem, not yours. Which is why I need you to take this money and disappear until it's over. Maya looked at the envelope of cash still sitting on the center console. $15,000. More money than she'd see in months of waitressing. Enough to solve so many problems, to buy her mother better medication, to pay down her student loans, to breathe for the first time in years. But it was also a cage. The moment she accepted it, she became part of Vincent's world, obligated to him in ways she couldn't fully understand. And Maya had spent her entire life trying to stay free, to make her own choices, to not owe anyone anything she couldn't repay. I'm not taking your money, she said firmly, but I want to help. Vincent blinked, genuinely surprised. Help how? I don't know yet. But you said someone close to you betrayed you. You said you need proof. I'm a waitress. People don't notice me. I'm invisible, background, forgettable. Maybe that could be useful. Absolutely not, Vincent said immediately. What you're suggesting is dangerous beyond. Everything is dangerous now, Maya interrupted. You said they'll figure out who warned you. If they do, I'm already at risk whether I help you or not. At least if I'm actively involved, I'll know what's coming. Maya, plus, you owe me. You said it yourself. I saved your life. That's worth something in your world, isn't it? Loyalty, debts, favors. Vincent stared at her, and Maya could see the calculations happening behind his eyes. She was right, and he knew it. In his world, debts mattered. Life debts most of all. If you do this, he said slowly, you follow my instructions exactly. No improvisation. No heroics. You do what I say, when I say it. Understood? Maya nodded. Understood. And the first instruction is this. Go home, pack a bag, and meet me tomorrow at noon. He pulled out his phone, typed something, and showed her the screen. An address in Lincoln Park. This is a safe location. We'll figure out our next steps there. Okay. Maya committed the address to memory, then checked her watch. It was nearly 1 a.m. I should go. I need to get some sleep before I visit my mother tomorrow morning. Vincent pulled the car out of the parking lot and drove her the remaining blocks to her apartment building. It was a modest walk-up in a working-class neighborhood, the kind of place where people minded their own business, and the rent was just barely manageable. As Maya reached for the door handle, Vincent's voice stopped her. Maya, why did you really do it? Warn me, I mean. You could have just ignored what you saw, kept yourself safe. Maya thought about it for a moment, about her mother's voice in her head, about the values she'd been raised with, about the kind of person she wanted to be. Because everyone deserves a chance, she said simply. Even people who've made mistakes. Maybe especially them. She got out of the car and walked to her building's entrance without looking back. Only when she was inside, with the door locked behind her, did she let herself shake. What had she just agreed to? Maya climbed the 3 flights to her apartment, let herself in, and leaned against the closed door. Her studio was small but clean. A Murphy bed currently folded up against the wall, a tiny kitchenette, a desk covered with nursing textbooks she hadn't opened in months. The window looked out onto an alley, rain streaking the glass. She pulled out Detective Chen's business card and stared at it. She should call. Should tell Chen about Vincent contacting her. About the meeting tomorrow. That would be the smart thing, the safe thing. But Maya had never been particularly good at doing the smart thing. Her mother always said she had too big a heart, that she saw the best in people even when she shouldn't. Maya tucked the card into her wallet and went to take a shower, washing away the smell of gunpowder and fear and rain. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new dangers, new choices. Tonight she'd saved a life. Tomorrow she might save her own. Maya woke at 7:30 Friday morning to the sound of rain still pattering against her window. For a blissful 3 seconds, she thought the previous night had been a dream. Some stress-induced nightmare born from too many double shifts and not enough sleep. Then she sat up and saw her uniform draped over the chair, still damp and smelling faintly of the restaurant's kitchen. The business card from Detective Chen sat on her nightstand. Her phone showed a saved address in Lincoln Park, the meeting point Vincent had given her. Not a dream. very much real. Maya made coffee in her small French press, the ritual helping to ground her in normalcy. Outside, Chicago was waking up, car engines starting, neighbors' footsteps in the hallway, the distant rumble of the L train, normal Friday morning sounds. But nothing about today would be normal. She checked her phone. No missed calls, no messages. She wasn't sure if that was comforting or concerning. Part of her had expected Detective Chen to call, or worse, for some unknown number to appear with threats or warnings. The silence felt like the calm before something inevitable. At 9 o'clock, Maya took the bus to Sunrise Meadows Assisted Living. The facility was in Rogers Park, a 40-minute ride that she made at least 3 times a week. The building was clean, but institutional, the kind of place that did its best with limited resources. Her mother's room was on the 2nd floor, a small single with a window overlooking the parking lot. Elena Rivera was sitting in her armchair when Maya arrived, dressed in her favorite purple cardigan, her gray hair pulled back in a neat bun. At 62, she looked older than she should. The diabetes had aged her, taken some of the light from her eyes. But when she saw Maya, her face brightened. "Mija," she said, reaching out her arms. "They told me you called last night. I was so worried." Maya hugged her mother, breathing in the familiar scent of lavender hand cream. "I'm fine, Mama. I'm sorry I worried you. Something happened. I could feel it." Elena pulled back, studying Maya's face with that uncanny maternal intuition. "You're not telling me everything." "There was an incident at the restaurant," Maya admitted, sitting on the edge of her mother's bed. "Someone broke a window, the police came, but nobody was hurt. The restaurant will be closed for a few days while they fix things." It was the truth, carefully edited. Elena didn't need to know about mob bosses and snipers and the danger her daughter had stumbled into. "You're sure you're okay?" Elena asked, her hand warm on Maya's cheek. "I promise." They spent the next hour in comfortable conversation. Maya helped her mother with her medication schedule, listened to stories about the other residents, fixed the clasp on Elena's favorite necklace that had been giving her trouble. Normal things, safe things, the kind of simple interactions that reminded Maya why she did everything she did. Before she left, Elena caught her hand. "Maya, whatever is happening, be careful. You have a good heart, but the world doesn't always reward good hearts." "I know, Mama. And remember, you're stronger than you think. You always have been." Maya carried those words with her as she left the facility, taking the bus back toward Lincoln Park. The address Vincent had given her was in a quiet residential area, tree-lined streets with brownstones and small front gardens. The rain had finally stopped, leaving everything washed clean and glistening. The building was a 3-story brownstone, well-maintained, but unremarkable. Maya checked the address twice before climbing the front steps and pressing the buzzer for Unit 2B. The intercom crackled. "Come up, 2nd floor." The door buzzed open. Maya climbed the stairs, her heartbeat accelerating with each step. The 2nd floor hallway was carpeted, numbered doors on either side. 2B was at the end. The door opened before she could knock. Vincent stood there, looking different than he had last night. He wore jeans and a plain black sweater, casual clothes that somehow made him seem more human, less like the dangerous figure from the restaurant. The cut on his cheek was still visible, but had scabbed over. His eyes were tired but alert. "You came," he said, and there was relief in his voice, as if he genuinely wondered whether she would. "I said I would." He stepped aside to let her in. The apartment was sparsely furnished but comfortable. A lived-in space, not a showroom. A worn leather couch, bookshelves lined with actual books, a kitchen visible through an open doorway. Classical music played softly from a speaker system, something with piano and strings. "This is a safe house?" Maya asked. "One of them. Owned under a shell corporation, no direct connection to me. As safe as anywhere can be right now." Vincent gestured to the couch. "Please sit. Can I get you anything? Coffee, water?" "I'm fine, thank you." Maya sat, and Vincent took the armchair across from her. For a moment they just looked at each other, two people thrown together by circumstance, trying to figure out how to navigate the impossible situation they'd found themselves in. "I contacted my brother last night," Vincent said, "after I dropped you off. Eddie, the one I told you about. He's going to help us. Can you trust him? With my life. He's the only person I can say that about right now." Vincent leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "Eddie has connections from his time in the service. People who know how to find information, how to stay off radar. He's working on identifying who set up the hit last night. Do you have any ideas?" Vincent's jaw tightened. "Several, But I need proof before I can act. In my world, accusations without evidence are worse than silence. They show weakness, create doubt. Tell me what you know, Maya said. Help me understand what we're dealing with. Vincent stood walking to the window that overlooked the street. Rain clouds were gathering again, threatening another downpour. There's a man named Carlo Russo. He's been with the family for 15 years, worked his way up from associate to my second in command. Smart, ambitious, patient. I trusted him. You think he's behind this? I know he is. I just can't prove it yet. Vincent turned back to face her. For the past 6 months, there have been irregularities. Money moving in ways it shouldn't. Meetings I wasn't informed about. Small things, easy to dismiss individually. But when you add them up, they form a pattern. Maya listened, fascinated despite herself. This was a world so far removed from her own. Nursing school and double shifts and student loans felt like they belonged to a different universe. Carlo's been positioning himself for a takeover, Vincent continued. He's made alliances with some of the older members who never fully accepted me as boss. Men who remember my father, who think I'm too soft, too willing to avoid confrontation. Are you? Maya asked. Too soft, I mean. Vincent smiled, but there was no humor in it. By their standards, probably. I don't believe in unnecessary escalation. I try to find solutions that don't involve. He paused, searching for the right words. I try to minimize harm. That's seen as weakness in this world. It sounds like wisdom to me. Maybe. But wisdom doesn't keep you alive when someone's trying to take your position. Vincent returned to his chair. The hit last night was Carlo's opening move. Public, dramatic, designed to show that I'm vulnerable. If he'd succeeded, he would have stepped in immediately, claimed he was avenging my death while actually consolidating power. But he didn't succeed, Maya said. Because you were warned. Exactly. Which means Carlo knows someone interfered. He'll want to find out who, and when he does. A knock on the door interrupted him. 3 sharp raps followed by 2 quick ones. Some kind of code. Vincent crossed to the door and opened it. A man entered, and Maya immediately saw the family resemblance. This had to be Eddie. Same dark eyes, same strong features, but softer somehow. He wore a mechanic's jumpsuit with the sleeves rolled up, work boots, and carried himself with the easy confidence of someone comfortable in his own skin. Eddie, this is Maya Rivera, Vincent said. Maya, my brother Eddie. Eddie's eyes widened slightly as he looked at her. You're the waitress? The one who warned him? Maya stood, suddenly self-conscious. Yes. Eddie crossed the room and, to her surprise, pulled her into a brief hug. Thank you, seriously, this idiot is the only brother I've got. Hey, Vincent protested, but there was warmth in his voice. Eddie released Maya and turned to Vincent, his expression sobering. I've got information. Some of it you're not going to like. The 3 of them sat, Eddie in the armchair Vincent had vacated, Vincent perching on the arm of the couch near Maya. Eddie pulled a small notebook from his pocket. I talked to Martinez, Eddie said. He's still got connections to intelligence networks from our service days. He ran the hit through some databases, cross-referenced with known operators in the Chicago area. And? Vincent prompted. The shooter was Frank Delgado. Freelancer. Works out of Detroit usually. Expensive, professional, doesn't miss often. Eddie glanced at Maya. You saved Vinny's life. Delgado's success rate is 97%. Maya felt cold. She'd known intellectually that the situation had been dangerous, but hearing it quantified like that, 97%, made it real in a new way. Who hired him? Vincent asked. That's where it gets complicated. The contract was arranged through intermediaries, multiple layers of separation. But Martinez tracked the money flow, and it leads back to an account Carlo has access to. Not one directly in his name, but one he controls. Vincent's hands clenched into fists. That's not enough. Carlo's smart. He'll have insulation, deniability. I need something concrete, something that ties him directly to the attempt. Eddie flipped a page in his notebook. Martinez said your best bet is Carlo's insurance policy. Apparently he keeps records of all his operations. Dates, transactions, communications. Everything documented in case he ever needs leverage against the higher-ups in the organization. Where does he keep these records? Storage facility in Cicero. Unit 247 registered under a dummy name. Martinez got the information from someone Carlo used to work with who got pushed out last year and has an axe to grind. Vincent stood, pacing the length of the room. Maya could see his mind working, calculating angles and risks. If we can get those records, prove Carlo orchestrated the hit, I can bring it to the council. They'll have no choice but to remove him. The council? Maya asked. The bosses above me, Vincent explained. The people who ultimately control the organization's major decisions. They don't tolerate betrayal, but they need proof. Documentation, evidence, something undeniable. So we break into the storage unit and get the records, Eddie said, making it sound simple. We? Vincent shook his head. No, you're out of this life, Eddie. You have Jennifer and the kids to think about. I'm not pulling you back in. You're my brother, Eddie said firmly. You think I'm going to sit on the sidelines while someone tries to take you out? Besides, you need me. You can't do this alone. He's not alone, Maya heard herself say. Both brothers turned to look at her. I can help. Maya, Vincent began. Hear me out, she interrupted, standing up to face them both. You said it yourself. Carlo will be looking for whoever warned you. I'm already involved, already at risk. But I'm also invisible. I'm a waitress. Nobody in your world knows who I am or would think twice about me. What are you suggesting? Eddie asked, his expression curious rather than dismissive. Maya's mind was racing, ideas forming even as she spoke. The storage facility in Cicero. It must have staff, security, people coming and going. What if I posed as an employee? Cleaning crew, maintenance, something like that. I could get in, locate Carlo's unit, and document what's there without raising suspicion. Vincent was already shaking his head. Absolutely not, it's too dangerous. If Carlo or any of his people are there, why would they be? If it's just a storage facility where he keeps insurance records, he's probably not checking on it every day. And even if someone did see me, they wouldn't know who I was. I'd just be another worker. She has a point, Eddie said thoughtfully. Carlo doesn't know her face. His people don't know her face. And the direct approach, us breaking in, would definitely trigger alarms, both literal and figurative. I don't like it, Vincent said flatly. You don't have to like it, Maya replied, surprised by her own boldness. But can you think of a better option? The apartment fell silent except for the classical music still playing softly in the background. Outside, the promised rain began again, drops tapping against the windows like impatient fingers. Vincent walked to the window again, staring out at the gray Chicago afternoon. Maya watched the tension in his shoulders, the way his reflection in the glass looked older than his 38 years. If we do this, he said finally, not turning around, we do it my way, completely. No improvisation, no risks I don't approve first. Agreed, Maya said. Vincent turned to face her, and the look in his eyes was intense, almost pleading. Do you understand what you're agreeing to? This isn't a game, Maya. If something goes wrong, if Carlo discovers what we're doing, the consequences won't be legal trouble or a slap on the wrist. These are people who solve problems permanently. Maya thought about her mother's words that morning. You're stronger than you think. She thought about the red dot on Vincent's chest, the split-second decision that had changed everything. She thought about the kind of person she wanted to be, someone who helped, even when it was hard, even when it was scary. I understand, she said quietly, and I'm still willing to help. Eddie stood up, clapping his hands together. All right then. We've got planning to do. Maya, you ever done any undercover work before? Does pretending to enjoy my job count? Eddie laughed. That's a start. Come on. I'll teach you how to act natural when you're terrified on the inside. It's a useful skill. The rest of the afternoon was spent in preparation. Eddie, it turned out, had a talent for logistics that came from his military background. He sketched out the layout of the storage facility, a large complex with multiple buildings, drive-up units, and climate-controlled interior spaces. Carlo's unit was in Building C, third floor, requiring keycard access. Getting you a uniform is easy, Eddie said. I know a guy who does costume work for theater companies. He can put together something authentic-looking. The keycard is trickier. The facility uses a standard security system, Vincent said, scrolling through information on his laptop. I can get a blank keycard programmed with a maintenance code. It'll work for 24 hours before the system flags it as irregular. What about cameras? Maya asked, looking at Eddie's sketch. They have them, but security doesn't monitor in real time unless there's an alert. As long as you act like you belong there, look official, don't trigger any alarms, you should be fine. Should be. The words hung in the air, full of uncertainty. They spent 2 hours going over the plan in detail. Maya would enter the facility at 2 a.m. Saturday morning, when staffing was minimal. She'd wear a cleaning service uniform, carry appropriate supplies, and make her way to Building C. Once there, she'd locate Unit 247, document whatever records she found. Eddie would provide her with a high-resolution camera and leave within 30 minutes. The key is confidence, Eddie explained, demonstrating. He walked across the room with his shoulders back, moving with purpose. You're not sneaking. You're not nervous. You're just someone doing their job, maybe annoyed about working the graveyard shift, thinking about what you'll do when you get home. Normal worker stuff. Maya practiced, walking back and forth while Eddie critiqued her posture, her pace, her expression. Better, he said after her 5th attempt. But you're still thinking too hard. Let your mind wander to something mundane. What did you have for breakfast? What's your mother's favorite TV show? Boring, everyday thoughts. That's what will make you look natural. Vincent watched from the couch, his expression unreadable. When Eddie called for a break, Vincent gestured for Maya to join him in the kitchen. You can still change your mind, he said quietly, filling a glass with water from the tap. Right up until the moment you walk into that facility, you can back out. No judgment, no consequences. I'm not going to back out, Maya said. Why? Vincent turned to face her, genuinely curious. Why are you doing this? And don't tell me it's because you're already involved or because it's the right thing. There's something else, I can see it. Maya accepted the glass of water he offered, buying herself a moment to think. Why was she doing this? It would have been so easy to take Detective Chen's card, to remove herself from this situation, to go back to her normal life of double shifts and student loans and visiting her mother 3 times a week. My whole life, she said finally, I've played it safe. I became a nursing student because it was practical, stable, a good career. I took a job waitressing because it paid the bills. I've made every decision based on what made sense, what minimized risk, what kept me and my mother secure. That sounds responsible, not wrong. It's not wrong, Maya agreed. But it's also not alive. I've been going through motions for 3 years, watching my dreams get smaller and smaller until they fit into the space between exhaustion and obligation. And last night, for the first time in so long, I made a choice that wasn't about safety or practicality. I saw someone in danger and I acted. I felt something. Vincent's expression softened. So this is about feeling alive? Maybe. Or maybe it's about proving to myself that I'm more than circumstances and limitations, that I can be brave when it matters. Maya set the water glass down on the counter. I know that probably sounds naive to you. It doesn't, Vincent said quietly. It sounds human, real, and that's in short supply in my world. They stood in the kitchen, the sounds of Eddie talking on his phone in the other room creating a backdrop of normalcy. Vincent reached out, hesitated, then gently touched the back of Maya's hand where it rested on the counter. Thank you, he said. Not just for last night, for this, for seeing me as more than what I am. Before Maya could respond, Eddie called from the living room. Vinny, Martinez is on the phone. He's got more information. The moment broke. Vincent's hand moved away, professional distance reasserting itself. They returned to the living room where Eddie had his phone on speaker. Confirmed that Carlo's been meeting with the Santoro family. Martinez's voice came through, slightly distorted by the connection. They're positioning themselves to absorb Marcello territory if there's a leadership vacuum. Vincent's expression darkened. The Santoros. Of course. They've been pushing boundaries for months. It gets worse, Martinez continued. Word on the street is there's a bounty. 20,000 for information on who warned you at the restaurant. Carlo's people are asking questions, showing photos to witnesses. Maya's blood went cold. Photos? How would they have photos? Security cameras, probably, Eddie said grimly. Most businesses have them these days. Marcos has cameras, Maya confirmed, her voice barely above a whisper. At the entrance, behind the bar, Vincent pulled out his phone, already dialing. I need to make some calls. We need to accelerate the timeline. What does that mean? Maya asked. It means we can't wait until Saturday, Eddie said. If Carlo's people identify you before we get those records, you become a target. We need to move tonight. The weight of that statement settled over the room like a physical presence. Tonight, less than 12 hours away. Less time to prepare, less margin for error, but also less time for Carlo to find her. Can we be ready by tonight? Maya asked, trying to keep the tremor out of her voice. Eddie checked his watch. It's 3:30 now. I can have the uniform and supplies by 7. Vincent can get the keycard programmed by 8. We brief until midnight. You go in at 1 a.m. instead of 2. It's compressed, but possible. Vincent was still on the phone, his conversation clipped and intense. When he hung up, his expression was grave. Marcos has been contacted by people asking about last night. They haven't provided any information yet, but it's only a matter of time. Marco himself is sympathetic. He doesn't want his staff endangered, but some of the other employees might talk, especially if money's involved. Then we move tonight, Maya said more firmly than she felt. We don't have a choice. Vincent looked at her for a long moment, and Maya saw something shift in his expression. Respect, maybe, or recognition. The acknowledgement that she wasn't backing down, wasn't breaking under the pressure. All right, he said. Tonight it is. Eddie, make the calls. Get everything we need. Maya, you should rest for a few hours. Where you're going, you'll need to be sharp. The next several hours passed in a blur of preparation. Eddie left and returned with a navy blue uniform that looked exactly like what a commercial cleaning service would use, complete with name tag and company logo. Vincent produced the programmed keycard, tested it against a reader to ensure it functioned. Maya reviewed maps of the facility until she could navigate it in her sleep. At 11 p.m. they ran through the plan one final time. You enter through the south entrance, Vincent said, pointing to the facility map. Security desk will be manned by one person, probably reading or watching videos to stay awake. Flash your ID badge, sign in as Maria Gonzalez, that's the name on the uniform, and head to Building C. Third floor, Unit 247, Maya recited. Use the keycard to access the hallway. Pick the unit lock, which I've taught you how to do, Eddie interjected. He'd spent an hour showing Maya how to use a basic lock-pick set on practice locks, and she'd gotten reasonably proficient. Document everything inside with the camera, focusing on any papers, ledgers, or electronic devices. Don't take anything physical unless it's absolutely necessary. 30 minutes maximum inside, Vincent continued. Then you exit the same way you came in, sign out, and Eddie will be waiting in the parking lot to extract you. It sounded simple when laid out step by step. Maya knew it would be anything but. At midnight, they loaded into Eddie's truck, a nondescript Ford that blended perfectly into Chicago's working-class neighborhoods. Maya wore the cleaning uniform under a jacket, her hair pulled back, minimal makeup. She looked at herself in the truck's visor mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. The drive to Cicero took 40 minutes through empty streets. Rain had started again, steady and cold, turning the world into streaks of light and shadow. Maya sat in the back seat, her hands folded in her lap to keep them from shaking, practicing the breathing techniques Eddie had taught her. You've got this, Eddie said, glancing at her in the rearview mirror. Remember, you belong there. You're just doing your job. They parked 2 blocks from the facility. Through the rain, Maya could see the complex. 3 large buildings, fluorescent lights making the parking lot bright as day despite the late hour. A few cars were scattered around, probably belonging to customers accessing their units. It's 12:58, Vincent said, checking his phone. You ready? Maya nodded, not trusting her voice. She removed her jacket, revealing the uniform underneath. Eddie handed her a cleaning supply carrier. Bucket, spray bottles, rags, all authentic-looking props. Communication, Vincent said, showing her the small earpiece he'd given her earlier. We'll be able to hear you and guide you if needed, but only use it if absolutely necessary. Talking to yourself would look suspicious. Maya inserted the earpiece, testing it with a quiet, "Can you hear me?" Loud and clear, Eddie's voice came back. Vincent caught her hand before she could open the truck door. Maya, if anything feels wrong, if you sense danger at all, you abort. Get out immediately. The records aren't worth your life. She met his eyes, saw the genuine concern there, and felt something shift in her chest. I'll be careful. I promise. Then she was out of the truck, walking through the rain toward the facility entrance, the cleaning supplies carrier in one hand, the forged ID badge clipped to her uniform. The automatic doors slid open with a soft whoosh. The security guard at the desk was exactly as Vincent had predicted. Early 20s, looking bored, his attention on his phone. He barely glanced up as Maya approached. Evening, she said, her voice steady. Maria Gonzalez, Superior Cleaning Service. Here for Building C. The guard gestured to the sign-in sheet without really looking at her. Maya signed the false name, noted the time, 1:03 a.m., and walked past the desk toward the interior corridor. She was in. The facility was quiet, the kind of deep silence that comes in the small hours when the world is sleeping. Maya's footsteps echoed softly on the tile floor as she made her way to Building C. The hallways were well lit but empty, rows of orange doors with numbers stenciled in black. Building C entrance ahead, she murmured quietly enough that only the earpiece would pick it up. Copy that, Eddie's voice responded. You're doing great. Maya used the key card on Building C's security door. It beeped once, green light, and the lock disengaged. She pulled the door open and climbed the stairs to the 3rd floor, her heart pounding so hard she was certain someone would hear it. The 3rd floor hallway stretched ahead of her, fluorescent lights buzzing faintly. Unit numbers counted up. 235, 237, 239. She was getting close. Unit 247 was at the end of the hallway, indistinguishable from the others except for the number on its door. Maya set down her cleaning supplies and pulled out the lockpick set Eddie had given her. Her hands were shaking now, adrenaline making her fingers clumsy. Take your time, Vincent's voice said in her ear, calm and reassuring. Deep breath. You've practiced this. Maya breathed, steadied her hands and inserted the picks into the lock. It took 3 tries, each second feeling like an eternity, but finally she felt the mechanism give. The lock clicked open. She pushed the door and stepped inside. The storage unit was larger than she'd expected, maybe 10 by 15 feet, lined with metal shelving. Cardboard boxes were stacked neatly, each labeled with dates and cryptic codes. A small desk sat in one corner with a filing cabinet beside it. Maya pulled out the camera and started documenting everything, photographing box labels, opening ones that looked promising, financial records, meeting notes, transaction logs, all meticulously organized. Carlo's insurance policy was exactly as described. She was photographing the contents of the 3rd box when she heard it. Voices, male voices coming from the hallway outside. Maya froze, her blood turning to ice. Checked with him an hour ago, one voice was saying. He wants a full inventory by morning. They were getting closer. Maya, Vincent's voice came urgently through the earpiece. Hide, now. But there was nowhere to hide. The unit was full of boxes and shelves, but no real cover, and the voices were right outside now. Unit 247, wasn't it? The second voice said. Maya heard the jingle of keys. Her time was up. Maya pressed against the wall as footsteps approached. The door opened. Carlo's men entered, talking about inventory. She held her breath, hidden behind a tall shelf. Vincent's voice crackled in her earpiece. Stay calm. Eddie's creating a distraction. Seconds later, a fire alarm blared. The men cursed and rushed out to investigate. Maya grabbed the camera and fled, meeting Eddie in the parking lot. They had the evidence. 3 days later, Vincent presented the documented proof to the council. Carlo's betrayal was undeniable. Meetings with rivals, financial theft, the assassination attempt. The council removed him, avoiding the war Carlo had orchestrated. Vincent kept his promise. Maya received an envelope with $50,000, enough for her mother's care and to finish nursing school debt-free. 6 months passed. Maya graduated, working at a community clinic in a quiet neighborhood. One evening she found a note slipped under her door. Thank you for the second chance. The world needs more people like you. V. Maya smiled, tucking the note away. She'd taken a risk, saved a life, and discovered her own courage. Sometimes the smallest choices echo the loudest.